Hi Sarah, it's Jo. I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour of the Glass Centre and the building here. And Zach is also going to talk to you about his work as well. Zach is here. So this is the top floor of the National Glass Centre, and you can see the ships on the water out in the front there. So it's in a really gorgeous location. We've got a shop over here and a cafe over here. Although it looks very kind of modern in here, it's actually going to be torn down in July. So we're all like extremely sad at the moment about this. But Zach and I are also thrilled that the curator, Julia Stevenson, decided to put a show on of our research. So I'm going to give you kind of a little bit of a brief overview of what Zach and I have been doing. So we're in the main gallery, and it's very quiet today. So we shouldn't be too interrupted. Okay, so this is the space. And I am in the front of the gallery space, as you can see, and then Zach and Anthony are in the back. So first of all, I'm going to kind of talk to you about how things all started, which might be a reiteration. I don't know how much you know about the background of my work, but this piece is called Distilled Portrait. And this piece is really pivotal to the whole trajectory of me trying to determine if cast glass, or I should say a negative space captured within cast glass, could be a reflective surface. And so I made 4 distillery jars in 2012 during a residency at the Corning Museum of Glass that had objects inside that represented individuals in my life, and I wanted to personify the collector as the magpie because magpies are a bird that hoards shiny objects in their nests. There's that phrase for women that love jewellery, oh she's such a magpie, because they really are collectors, and they have the awareness of their own reflection within mirrors. So naively, when I made this piece in 2012, I thought that if I core cast this jar in crystal with that negative space of the bird inside, that once mirrored it would be a reflective surface where the viewer can have this moment of contemplation and kind of attachment within the form itself, somewhat remarking on the fact that there's a little bit of the magpie in us all. But because the surface of the glass is satin when it's cast, it looked like kind of dull aluminum, which is kind of a cool trick if you want the glass to look as though it's got metal embedded inside it. So this is a reiteration after, several years of trial and error, and I have 2 more birds that I'm about to mirror that are even more reflective than this. This was lost wax cast, and using wax during the process actually can interfere with the surface quality of the glass, which of course can't be polished internally. So I've actually created a tension set mold system whereby wax isn't needed as an intermediary material. So I'm going to come back to this, but I want to show you some of the tests that I made, and these are displayed alongside the finished artworks, which is really nice because it kind of shows the journey that was taken during the PhD, and also just the many mirroring qualities that can be had. So these little pieces here, I'm going to take one off the wall so you can see. I'm going to try and zoom in so it's in focus. So these are taken from a lens, a flat lens. You can see the negative space inside. And I basically tested 4 of the most utilised glasses in the industry, in the art glass industry: Reichenbach, Bullseye, Gaffer, and Crystallica, to see how they behave with different investment materials, with boron nitride coatings. And initially I was looking for this aha moment of, you know, a perfect reflection, which is never really achievable when you're working with cast glass, because of the fact that, you know, you're subjecting the glass to an extreme heat and you're making the negative space from a powdery substance. This is as reflective really as it gets. You can kind of see my phone in there. But what I realized is this kind of palette of effects whereby the mirror can look like, you know, coal or crocodile skin, or you can play around with devitrification. So these gold stripes are caused by devit. And interestingly, this palette has kind of conjured more interest in some regards than some of the finished artworks. And the second phase of testing was chosen for the British Glass Biennale last year. So it just goes to prove that the journey is as valuable as the finished article. I'm going to come over here to the second phase of testing, where I'm using enclosed forms to see if those surface qualities are similar to the open face mold. So this is the recess of a bullet inside the glass, which is polished to a dome, and I'm just going to pick one of these up. So this is a system of hanging. They're kind of like candlesticks. I was trying to think of a way where I wouldn't have to use adhesive to anchor the glass. So they're really easy to ship. So this is phase 2, and then phase 3 was using the Magpie within a dome form, which are not on display today. To the right, as you walk into the gallery, you'll find Iris Obscura, which is a really pared down body of work compared to some of my other pieces, which are kind of a little bit more literal, perhaps. So this is taking on some of the history of the mirror that I've gleaned from the contextual review, the mirror as an all-seeing eye that represents the all-seeing eye of a greater power, in that it can replicate everything in the world in front of it. So these forms take on the appearance of a lens, a concave lens within an eye form. And what I'm really interested in is this kind of dual connotation with the mirror. It can kind of suggest evil, it can be thought of as the all-seeing eye of God. And so I wanted to kind of represent a study whereby I'm taking the lens and kind of creating a different palette within that interior. So this is a deliberately broken mirror, in that the investment was broken before the glass was cast. And as you can see, the crack is the only reflective part of the surface. So rather than the crack being a negative connotation, it's actually turned into literally a positive. And you can see the materiality of the lens here being converted from a blown bubble of glass to an investment material. You can kind of see that kind of raw surface of the material there. So these are set to the wall with tension set claws. The 2 at the bottom are welded, and then there's one that comes out if you want to ever take the glass out of the piece, out of the claw system, I should say. This piece negates a reflection completely, but you can kind of see a ghost halo of the lens inside. This one's completely reflective, and it inverts whatever is in front of it, just like an image kind of cast at the back of a human eye, or any eye, I should say. And then this is the raw surface of the mirror. And what's beautiful about these cast mirrors is that they kind of act as landscapes to glass flow. So what you see is kind of like a horizon line or a mountainscape is actually caused by the glass interacting with the mold in the firing stage. So every piece that's made is completely unique. This is a little study called a roughness comparator. It's a piece of metal used in industry to quantify surface abrasions. So 2L is a mirror quality, and you can see how it's duplicated into glass here as a negative space. So that same area that is a reflective surface in the metal is a little bit more mottled when it's captured in glass. But it's a lot brighter, as you can see, due to the silver nitrate that's applied to the back. So that's just kind of a little test piece, and then you can see here, this is the view, I'm going to try and focus here, of the gallery this side. So over here we have a piece called Golden Thread. It's a reiteration of a piece that I made a few years ago in clear glass. So these are all spirit decanters that are cast in citrine glass, and they have the negative space of a piece of rope inside with 2 knots, and it's referring to the noun, the golden thread, the links that bind all human life, which are kind of displayed in these decanters that were once vessels for spirits. So it's only when these pieces are placed in a landscape that you can see that continuous piece of thread inside. So these are all polished by hand, they're lost wax cast. You can see the original cutting in the glass, and then the tops are laminated in place. They're polished to a full polish. So those don't move, and they're each numbered in sequence, so you can display them in the same way each time. So if I come to this side of the wall, you can see a piece called Persephone. This is the first completely reflective rose window that's been made in my Oculus series. So this is about 33.5 inches in the round by about 4 inches deep. And it's made of 42 components, so it's pretty sizable. They do take quite a long time to make. But what I wanted was for the viewer to be reflected in these wheat kernels. So these are hand sculpted originally in clay, and you can see how reflective they are. However, within this piece, I've used that palette of effects that I was talking about. So we have reflective wheat kernels, but then we have more muted kind of seed pod formations, and we have that kind of cracked crocodile skin aesthetic in the middle. So there's about 4 different effects here. These ones are a lot darker, and I'm basically trying to kind of allude to that kind of decline of light that we have in winter. So Persephone was the goddess who had to go to Hades due to eating pomegranate seeds, and Greek myth says that this is why we have the seasons that we do. So a little bit of Greek mythology for you there. Over here, this is the last piece before I hand over to Zach. This piece is called Celeste, and it's a smaller configuration of a piece that I made last year, which was the biggest piece in my career. It was about 450 components. This one is about 1/3 of the size, and it's basically a reinterpretation of a piece I made in 2015 called Indra's Web. Indra's Web, or Indra's Net, was a Hindu proverb that represented society. So the proverb says that we're all jewels in a complex construct, that we all reflect one another. And if one jewel is to be plucked out of the net, the rest will falter. So it doesn't matter what you do in the world, everybody is needed for society to function as one. And so I really wanted to I thought it was a really gorgeous metaphor, and I wanted the viewer to be reflected within these prisms that are negative spaces within solid prisms. So these are a combination of investment cast glass with different surface effects. There's about 5 really large ones here that are all hand polished and tension set in claws, and then we have 3 different sizes of these prisms which are made with graphite molds. So the beauty of working with graphite is that I can make hundreds of these pieces in a much shorter time frame, and they're a lot less waste. I'm not wasting investment material at all. So these can be configured in different ways. It's not like the rose window where you have a systematic kind of composition. These can, pieces can be subtracted, they can be added. So it gives more, freedom with an interior. And I'll send you some pictures of the really large piece I made last year. I'm going to pass it over to Zach in just a minute. I did also want to mention we're in a show with Anthony Amukatar, and Anthony's from Ghana. He prints glass powders onto sheet glass and then slumps them. So there is his work also. I'll show you a detail of that. And here is Zach's work. So I'm going to call Zach over. Zach? Due to the size of the video, I'm going to pause here and then he's going to start his discussion.